Welcome back, everybody. Today's video is going to be a bit different than most of the videos that I record. And so many of you may already know that Valve handed out another ban wave for Smurfs and other TOS violators in their recent update for Frostivus. However, one ban in particular really drew a lot of attention.
What did you get from the gift chest? Oh, owned. Open gift. What did I get? What? I got banned?
So maybe we all got a good laugh out of that. And while many other bans were handed out, not just Mason, Valve clearly wanted to make an example of him, as they blatantly called him out in their New Century news update associated with the patch release. So, and smurfing isn't only the naughty thing players are getting up to. Amongst other questionable choices, some bad actors are playing like jerks, ruining games and losing behavior score because of it, and then hiring behavior score farmers to drive it back up. They might as well have just said Mason, because that is what he was banned for. Now, while his main account may have been permanently banned, Mason is actually allowed to create a new account. This is because he was banned for sharing his account, paying others to boost his behavior score, rather than actually smurfing. Therefore, based on Valve's TOS, him creating a new account is not treated as a smurf. As you guys can see in the email sent back to Mason, that he's allowed to create another Steam account, just like I said. There's been a lot of discussion within the community as to the fairness of this ban, what it means for the rest of us. Did Valve actually help Mason's streaming career by allowing him to ethically smurf and in effect ruin a bunch of games for the players that he's being stuck playing with? So was this even a positive in the first place? Was this example worth it? These are the type of things I want to discuss in this video, and also use this as an opportunity to discuss some things that I've been thinking about over the last year or so. In these polarizing type of scenarios, I think it's really easy to choose sides. Like, I believe it's easy to skip a lot of the nuanced discussion and say, I agree with Mason, or Mason deserved it all, and he's a... But I'm not really here to drama bait you guys. I'm not here to vehemently argue one way or the other, and as one of the few long-term Dota streamers, I believe that I offer, if not a valuable insight, at least a unique one into the circumstances surrounding this. So with all that said, today is going to be a video about my perspective on this whole situation and how it affects the surrounding issues within the Dota community. So the first question that comes to mind is, what exactly does it mean to be toxic? Toxicity can manifest itself in numerous different ways, and if I were to ask 100 different people what they think toxicity is, I might very well get 100 different answers. Mason's explanations for purchasing behavior score boosting was that he continuously got reported and lost his ability to use in-game communication, and as a result, he believed that it was unfair that he kept getting reported because he wasn't saying anything. So how could he be being toxic? And this is the first form of toxicity amongst the 100 answers we've asked that I want to call into question. Communication over the internet lacks a lot of things. There's a lot of face-to-face body language, mannerisms, gestures, etc. So my first question that I pose to someone watching this video is, if you are interacting with someone in real life, would they have to explicitly say something questionable or toxic for you to not want to be around them or to make you uncomfortable? My personal opinion on this matter is absolutely not. There are many ways that someone can make me feel uncomfortable or out of place that are outside of verbal communication. So while vibes may be an overly cliche term, I believe that it is also the best word to encompass all of these various things that people can do to make you feel this way, good or bad, that are not verbal communication. Does someone give you good vibes? So then we must delve into the Dota side of things and ask, what does it mean to have good or bad vibes within a Dota game where we don't have that face-to-face interaction? So before I answer this question, I want to provide a bit of context from my perspective. I believe one of the most toxic things anyone can experience in real life is when somebody diminishes your passions, makes you feel bad about caring about something that you care about, and explicitly dismisses the fact that you care about this thing. I use an example of, have you ever tried to work together in a group project or at work when you were deeply interested and one of your members did not carry their weight and clearly cares less than all the other members? The most exhausting part of working in a team or in a group is not the pursuit of the final task. It is convincing people like this to care and to be motivated as much as you do. And at the time, it doesn't really make sense that they don't care about it as much as you. If you're choosing to spend time on this project, if you're choosing to pursue this career, aren't you motivated just as much as I am to get the job done and to do it well? So sadly, in these dynamics, the person that doesn't care is the one that holds all the power. They theoretically hold the others in the group hostage, as the other members are the ones that will become emotional. They'll become stressed and anxious over the situation, while the other person is simply detached, emotionally and effort-wise. Now, you may know what I'm getting at, right? How often in Dota do you feel like your teammates care far less about winning the game than you do? How often does your carry stop caring about the game because you didn't buy the item that they wanted you to buy? You didn't share a tango with them. You didn't pull the camp. You didn't try to go on the guy when they told you to. How many of you feel pressured to cater to people like this because you're invested in winning that game? And if you know your carry does decide to engage in these behaviors, it will make you less likely to win. How many of you would say that these are the scenarios that make you hate Dota, that make us complain about Dota? Very rarely do I hear complaints about the mechanics of the game or that Dota is shit. It's the people that we play with. And isn't this most of those situations? And to tie it all together, would your carry have to actually say anything to you to make you feel all of these things? How many of you would say that you could feel the vibes of when someone on your team has stopped trying and that they have mentally checked out of the game, effectively saying, IDC, go next? So let's circle back to the question above. What is the equivalent of real-life vibes in a Dota game? I like to think of vibes as things that contribute to us getting what we want out of a situation. For instance, if we're spending time with friends and family IRL, we're looking to have a good time, to laugh, to relax, and these are what the good vibes make us feel. Bad vibes would simply be the opposite of all these things: discomfort, sadness, anger. So why, then, do people load up a ranked game of Dota? They queue a ranked game, entering an agreement with 4 other people on their team that they are going to try to win the game. The pursuit of a challenge, to overcome a difficulty, to feel accomplished, to engage in mental warfare with the opponent, coordinating with teammates, pinging item timings, communicating objectives verbally or with pings, joining smokes, listening to the communication of your teammates, taking part in the team fights, or playing safe because you're not. These are the things that give good vibes in a Dota game because they contribute to you winning the game. What is the opposite of all of these things that give you bad vibes? Not trying, not being engaged, playing your own game, regardless of what your teammates say or do. Ask yourself what you subconsciously expect of your teammates going into a game. Is it not simply to try to win the game? The second the perceived chance of winning the game is lower, the vibes of the team just inevitably go down. So now for my first polarizing stance of the video, these bad vibes are exactly what Mason and other members of the community like him make the rest of us feel on a daily basis. They are preying on your expectation to have a nice competitive experience and working towards a common goal with your team. So bear with me. What can we do to combat this? Lower our expectations? While managing expectations in general is a pretty important skill to have, that doesn't really sound that great. Just accept the worser game of Dota, accept our teammates are going to be toxic. Why not just go play some other game if that's what we're going to do? So what are our alternatives, right? When I'm thinking of meaningful change, daily actions are what come to mind. Nothing really happens overnight. So what can we do on an everyday basis, or at least the days that we play Dota? What action can we take? Let's cycle back to exactly what's happening here, right? Toxic player doesn't get what they want. They hold team emotionally hostage with various forms of threatening chance to win. Teammates argue with them, giving them attention, or panders to their demands, effectively appeasing them. Toxic players get what they want out of this scenario and are incentivized to repeat their actions in the future. So what's the crucial step of this entire cycle? What is the one aspect that the rest of us can control? If it isn't the toxic teammate, it is the arguing and appeasing that is our contribution. Have you ever considered that by giving the toxic player what they want, you're effectively inflicting toxicity on that player's future teammates? So let's be clear. I'm not here to assign blame and to say it's all of your fault for appeasing them or arguing with them. I believe blaming detracts from the subject at hand. I'm simply pointing out that the agency that all of us have as a community in this situation is our response to the original toxicity. On top of that, have you ever considered that babysitting the whiny carry is actually making them more likely to whine in the future, thus hurting all of your fellow support brethren? But It makes sense. Arguing makes us feel better in the moment because we get to shit on the toxic player and feel better about ourselves. Appeasing the toxic player makes us more likely to win that individual game. Doesn't it make sense in the moment that we just want to win? But in the long term, we are perpetuating an endless cycle that only benefits the toxic minority in this community. I encourage each and every one of you watching to consider how this cycle works in your games and potentially consider the mute button. Consider coordinating with the other 3 players that care about winning the game as much as you do, rather than derailing the game plan for the sake of focusing on the one player that doesn't. This is the agency that we all have in this dilemma. And it's about time as a community that we hold ourselves accountable to do what we can do and to stand up for ourselves in this 30 to 45 minute long, emotionally abusive relationship that we're effectively living through. It is time for us to consider that we do not have to be the person that initiated the toxicity in the game to be a meaningful contributor to its pervasiveness in our future games. Only a united effort would achieve meaningful progress, and this is something that I believe we are quite capable of accomplishing. Escaping this abusive dynamic can be worked towards over time, and in the above call to action, I'm encouraging us to take our own accountability rather than focusing on the toxic players. However, sometimes it is necessary, don't worry Reddit, we're looking at you, to call these players out. Being that our medium is the internet, it is difficult to directly confront them, so we are left doing it through the forums or that oh so juicy report button at the end of the game. This is our way of calling these players out, albeit largely anonymous. So part of why I'm making this video today is because I'm calling you players out not so anonymously. So what generally happens when we call people out? What type of response am I going to get from the people that disagree with me? Or maybe you think I'm kind of a... When confronted with the fact that they are toxic, these people will do one of 2 things. 1, they will attack the people that are calling them out. Like you might have just attacked me in your head watching this video. Reddit doesn't know shit. My teammates have it out for me because I'm a streamer. You've ruined plenty of games in the past. Who are you to talk? These are just examples of ways to attack the people confronting them. Now, I'm no saint. Don't get me wrong, but why is it that my character, or anyone else's for that matter, is being called into question when the case being presented is not about us? If you call a toxic player out in the middle of a game, the equivalent is berating the fact that you care, that you're a tryhard. Why are you getting so emotional? A nonchalant dismissal of your woes. It's just a game, bro. Relax. And lastly, pinning the blame on you. You made them do this. You deserve this. You could have just force-staffed them. You could have bought that glimmer cape, and none of this would be happening. Attacking us, attacking the rest of you, makes it a you problem and not a them problem, effectively relieving them of any responsibility or accountability. The second response that we can get from them is defending themselves, saying that they didn't do anything, they're just playing the game, or they didn't say anything, or they didn't mean to. Defending themselves effectively dismisses any negative effect that their actions had on you. When you confront somebody toxic in your life, you are expressing to them that their words or actions impacted you negatively in some way. The subject of this conversation at hand is thus the person that is affected and how they are affected, not the person that is negatively impacting them. This is not an attack on the person's character, but an attack on their actions. With that in mind, by making the conversation about them and defending themselves, they are changing the subject, making it so that there's really no further discussion to be had. It's virtually impossible to engage. Sometimes they'll even make themselves the victim, once again, making it about them.
I guarantee you, if I wasn't me, if I wasn't a streamer, if I wasn't Mason, and I played those games the way I did, and I behaved the way I did, I genuinely, with all my fucking heart, believe I would not have gotten the reports I did. I genuinely believe it. So when people say like, oh, you did it, it's your fault, I guarantee you, if I wasn't streamer, if I wasn't me, if I wasn't Mason, this would not happen to me.
So, I think I speak for a lot of people that watch this, that holy shit, this is exhausting. It gets really fucking old to listen to spiels like this. Main character syndrome is a real bitch, and a lot of these big personalities have the most serious cases of it. Trust me, I am speaking from experience. Think about how you'd want someone to respond if you told them something they did that bothered you. Perhaps an apology. Okay, great. In this case, Mason did that in a follow-up post on Reddit that was later deleted. But where's the display of self-reflection that may lead to the prevention of finding ourselves in this same discussion again? The second that criticism is matched with defensiveness, the ability to learn and grow from it goes out the window. Thus, they will not learn, because if they didn't intend to do anything wrong or didn't think that they did anything wrong, then there's no way that they could have done anything wrong. Right? Now, what do both of these responses have in common? It's quite simple. It is all about them. The attack on you makes them feel better, thus prioritizing their comfort over addressing the issues at hand. The defensiveness changes the subject of their actions to be their intentions, to the circumstances surrounding their infractions. And most importantly, it has nothing to do with the original grievance that is being addressed. No one wants to hear your excuses. We all have shit that we could use to validate being toxic and ruining other people's games. We care about how you plan to fix this. We care about being better moving forward. And how can we possibly trust that you won't just keep doing the same thing? Now, before I conclude this video, let's cycle back to the previous clip. This is only happening to him because he is Mason. This only happened to Quinn because he used to be toxic. These statements bring into question the idea of fairness in all of this. Is it fair that pro players and streamers are held to a higher standard? To answer this question, I want to first address the power dynamics of interacting with these big personalities. As a smaller streamer than Mason, when we're talking about view count, there is a power dynamic involved when I talk about him, or when he talks about me. If I ever criticize Mason, I'm immediately met with accusations of jealousy, inadequacy, compensating, saltiness that he's a more popular streamer than I am. This also goes for players in his games. Have you ever heard a streamer money shame the people that they're playing with as a basis to establish superiority? I have, because I've also regrettably done that myself. The fact that these statements are made and can be made establish the fact that there is an unequal playing field in these confrontations, and thus there is a power dynamic. Any one individual who speaks up against the streamer or the pro is effectively criticizing a higher up on the hierarchy of bigger business. Now, while the streamer is in no way their boss, they hold much more power in this situation. The only real power the average player has in a streamer's game is to report them, and that is what inevitably happens. Sadly, the main character syndrome and privilege of being a streamer makes it quite difficult to be aware of this dynamic. I'm going to express my empathy here to these players and these streamers, and hopefully you can try to as well. When you're constantly being criticized, when your play and behavior is underneath a microscope to the masses, everything you do and everything surrounding what you do is made about you. Imagine how difficult it is to put yourself in other shoes when many people around you are always making you the focal point of attention. By no means does this excuse the behavior of players or streamers such as myself, but it is simply meant to provide insight as to why this so commonly happens. So what is the other side of this coin? What happens when Mason shit talks me on his stream or makes a lewd comment about a woman in the scene? In my case, I get tens or hundreds of Mason viewers coming to my chat, linking his clip about what he said about me, or just simply regurgitating his messages in copy pasta of some form. In the case of women, they experience harassment, sexualizing comments, misogynistic DMs, and sometimes worse. Did Mason have to ask his viewers to do this? Did he say it with the intent of them to do this? No, but it does not change the fact that it happens. When he says or does toxic things, it undoubtedly has a much larger impact on those around him than when another member of the community does the same. This is why streamers and players must be held to a higher standard. Any reasonable person would probably agree that streamers are not exactly the greatest role models. But, like it or not, if you spend enough time watching somebody, you will pick up on their habits, their lingo, and parasocial relationships develop, leading to a streamer becoming an influencer. When you interact with people in real life, you can feel the impact that you have on them. You are happy. Those around you become happier. If you're feeling a little bit down, you can see the mood of the room around you lower. These are things that you can easily perceive, but there is no immediate feedback like this as a streamer on the internet. It is quite easy to be ignorant and oblivious to the impact that you have on the community as a streamer and those that watch you and those that are affected by the members of your audience. What you meant as a harmless joke may in actuality significantly impact someone else. The reality is we must be held to a higher standard, and we must be willing to hear that our actions accomplish things that we did not intend to do. If a pro player or streamer is getting away with a given behavior, what is stopping from other members of the community from wanting to do the same, or at least feeling like they should be able to do the same, or that they can do the same without repercussions? Part of your job description as an influencer is that you influence, and you must be held to a standard that reflects just that. As influencers, we are in a position of privilege. Privilege is not defined by what we do have. It is defined by what we don't have to deal with. Problems that others face that we as influencers do not. This privilege comes from the position of power that we are in. Many streamers are not aware of this privilege, and they will not acknowledge it. Awareness does not mean that they have to feel ashamed for having this privilege. Awareness of privilege means that you must understand that you do not experience the same problems as those who don't have this privilege, that you cannot afford to dismiss their issues, and your actions have impact on others that you are not fully aware of. We must, as streamers and influencers, be open-minded to the gripes of our community and those that are playing with us in our games. This privilege extends to pro players and other super high MMR players in regards to smurfing. I myself was a former perpetrator of smurfing. In my case, I advocated that I was doing it to educate the masses. The few players whose game I ruined was a small sacrifice for the greater good of learning. Other high MMR players use smurfing to practice new roles, new heroes, or conceal strats for upcoming tournaments, or to just simply play with their friends. While I understand that there are smurfing abusers that do it to boost accounts, or to sell them, or to just simply pad their ego and shit on lower MMR players, there are also plenty of people who have reasonable arguments for why they would want to smurf. But that reasonable argument is coupled with privilege. None of these people smurfing feel the negative impact that they have on the community. Even if we only ruin a small portion of games, the sheer fact that an average member of the community has to be wary of smurfs. They have to be on the lookout for smurfs. They have to go into a game anxious about the fact that there might be a smurf on the other team every time they see a tinker, every time they see a lone druid. It even extends to the person in the 4K bracket that played like a god that game that is not smurfing and gets reported because people think that he is. These are the problems that high MMR players are privileged not to have to deal with. It is our responsibility to be empathetic, to resonate with the people that we are hurting, and it is exactly why I now only smurf in private lobbies with my viewers. The point of this dissertation on smurfing is to provide insights from both sides as to why this rampant smurfing problem even exists in the first place, and why a lot of higher tier players still insist on being able to have a smurf account. And it has been made abundantly clear by Valve that all smurfing is going to be enforced to come to an end. It does not matter what our intentions are as smurfers, it only matters the negative impact that it has on the community as a whole. And thus, I wholeheartedly agree for it to come to an end. This exact privilege dynamic is a direct parallel to streamers, pro players, and their interactions with the rest of the community. Just because we do not intend to have the prolific effect that we have on the community does not mean that it is not there. We must be open-minded, willing to hear the other side, and change our actions if it means the greater good of the community. This is not the same as filtering ourselves for the sake of political correctness. I cannot speak for the accountability of all other streamers, but I am here to tell you that this has been my primary goal in any form of reformation that I am trying to undergo. I'm aware of the negative impacts that I myself have had on this community in the past. And I'm also aware that I'm not perfect, and I will undoubtedly mess up and have a negative impact in some way or some form in moments in the future. My goal of this video, at the end of the day, is to open a line of communication from both sides to directly call out streamers and other personalities in situations similar to Mason's and draw attention to the fact that the community needs better role models if any meaningful change is to occur. Also, to communicate our perspective as influencers on the matter so that the community may be more understanding, but also know that we are not using this perspective as an excuse. If you understand us better, then you can provide us with more meaningful feedback. And that is exactly what I am encouraging you to do. Give us meaningful feedback. Hold us accountable. Hold your toxic teammates accountable. Take a stand by not giving them attention and pandering to their demands. As a community, we must take accountability for what role we each play in the toxicity and the smurfing that happens in Dota. And I formally invite you to ask me questions, to give me honest, if brutal feedback. Come to my stream. Tell me, hey, BSJ, this time you did that. Yesterday you did this. Today you did that. This is the type of stuff to BSJ. This is a problem that we experience. Do you know about this? This is the type of stuff that needs to happen for these type of issues to be resolved over time. It's not going to be an overnight fix, but I believe we can make our way towards just a better community as a whole, even if it'll never be perfect. If you guys have feedback for me, I promise I will do my best to reflect on what you said and to take it not as an attack on me and to not be defensive about your gripes, but to hear you, acknowledge you, and to hopefully understand you better, and so that you can also understand us better. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Hope you liked this video, and see you guys around.